Hello, everyone. I'm Steven Stark, and welcome to this off-the-track interview for Drift Colorado. I'm joined by Josh Spencer, Justin Chestnut, and Joshua Love. Joshua Love is a local Drift Colorado driver, and we're going to be interviewing him via Zoom. We have him right here on the laptop, and this is his Pro 2 trophy. So congratulations, Josh. And Josh Spencer, how do you take it away?
Yeah, definitely. So just a quick pre-lapse before we get too deep into the Pro 2. These two guys, they met quite a while ago, but then they were able to come in last year, and Josh actually ended up taking the championship for Drift Colorado last year, and then the two of them went on to go get their Pro 2 license prior to taking it to that. What I'd like to know from you two is kind of how you met, where you've come from as far as meeting to where you get to now, where you are now. So yeah, Josh, take it away.
I crashed my car one time and Justin saved me.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Justin, could you expound on that a little for us?
From what I remember, it was an event at IMI, and something had happened, and Josh had put basically the passenger front corner into the entry wall and did a little bit of damage, and I think he made it all the way out to the street in the process. In front of IMI, and the only part I really remember is trying to start his car, and the oil cooler had punctured and it shot oil about 30 feet in the air.
Oh wow.
And then we towed it back, and then I don't really remember what happened from there, so Josh can fill us in on that.
I just remember Justin had to come to my house and consult me a little bit on getting the car back together. I ended up getting it back together for the most part, and then as sort of my career started taking over, I started running out of time to work on the car, and from that point I just had After Hours do a little bit of work on the car, and then taking the championship, I wanted to go, take it to the next level, which is do Pro-Am and hunt my Pro 2 license. And at that point they had already done some great work, and I was like, hey, do you want to team up with me? Let's go do this thing, let's go hit these shootouts and get this license. And that's kind of how it all started, and snowballed from there in a big way.
Man, snowballs can be the best thing. That's a really good story. It's good to see how the camaraderie started from the get-go, and it's kind of just built from there. That's something you don't see every day. Josh, I actually have a question for you. Last time we talked was at Drift Colorado Round 3. We had a little bit of an interview back there, and you actually ended up winning that in your previous car, not your FD car. And as a result, you drank White Claw out of a shoe. I can't imagine how that tasted. But my question for you actually is, what ended up happening after that event, after the IMI event?
After the IMI event, was there something specific? I don't recall really. There was a lot of White Claws. After that, after the IMI event is really when we started to pick up on this, the Pro 2 season.
Dialing in for the Pro 2, doing your 10K shootout, isn't that right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So that was actually the first time we got to drive the Pro 2 car that you guys are sitting next to. The car had finally got finished. Justin wanted to go out to 10K to the North Dakota event and try and get his Pro 2 license. We took the Pro 2 car out, tested it for the first time, got 3 days worth of driving in it, could never really get it dialed, and we really didn't get it dialed until we got to Formula Drift, interestingly enough.
Yeah, Justin, wasn't there some steering issues as well?
There was I shouldn't say a plethora of issues, but there was a handful that kind of plagued us the whole weekend. The big one was the steering stuff. We were having some issues with steering clearance. We weren't able to get a hold of the tires that we needed to run in Pro 2 beforehand due to sponsor obligations and things like that, and the logistics on their end. So we were kind of taking a guess on what tire size we're going to end up running, and we took some advice from some other people, pulled the trigger on a pair pretty much just for that event, and they ended up basically hitting everything. So
fantastic.
We had one pair of rack stops left over from the Pro-Am car that were made out of Delrin, and for some reason, when we installed them on this car, they crushed at some point during practice. So they basically quit working as rack stops.
Oh, wow.
And we're letting it oversteer, and the tires were hitting the intercooler piping and the body, the inside of the wheel well, pretty bad. Also, the rack bound up, so we did a rack in the pits, and then we got some rack stop stuff solved enough for him to compete. And I don't remember, what spot did you get anyway? Because I remember Nate Hamilton beat you twice.
We got to the top 4, and that's when the rack stop finally failed, and we spun twice in the same location in one battle.
So,
wow.
So on the lead and the chase, we both spun after not spinning there all competition.
So, I mean, I still consider that a success. He'd never even been in the car with it moving under its own power before that. So to go 4th, and that competition's not a joke. You know, there's guys like Nate Hamilton, who was a pro driver for a couple years out there, Steve Mass, Chance Crooks, a handful of guys who are really, really good, solid drivers. So to finish 4th in that the first time in the car, despite all the issues, I felt pretty good about. And then it gave us a good list to come home and bang out before we went to FD to get the problem solved. That way at FD we could focus on setting up the car itself, not solving problems with it.
So, I mean, speaking of preparation for FD, you already kind of went through the mechanical stuff that you had to go through. Was there any other kind of preparations that you had to take to get you guys psyched or mentally prepared or anything like that?
I mean, for me, it was pretty much just pure stress until the event was over. Basically from leaving North Dakota.
I can imagine.
But we felt pretty confident in the car going. We pretty much just focused on making suspension changes, stuff like that at the track. We luckily got pitted next to Rome. I can't pronounce his last name. Rome CP. Who
Charpentier
is a E36 guru.
Oh, nice.
And thank God he made it. I'm sure everyone's heard about his issues getting there. But he made it, and he was nice enough to come over and talk us through some suspension settings, and he was even nice enough to throw us a set of front springs that he had his spares out of his trailer to swap spring rates and stuff like that.
Oh, fantastic.
The car dialed in and feeling good for Josh. Did a couple of gear set changes. Basically just got it where we wanted it to be.
Well, that's awesome. That's really good to hear. How about you, Josh? Did you have any mental or physical preparation that you had to take to make sure that you were able to secure that win?
Yeah, about 4 mental breakdowns.
Oh, goodness.
Prior to the event.
I can imagine.
And I mean, getting there, the vibe always changes when the team comes together and we start working together. I think we have one of like the strongest teams, you know, definitely as on far as like a friendship basis. When we get together, it's just all laughs, all smiles, and we just have a great time. But it's definitely nerve-wracking getting there in a car that we had driven, but we swapped the entire steering system, the rack and the power steering pump and the front wheels and the tires, like everything had changed. So getting to that point and getting into practice was definitely stressful. Biggie Smalls on my headphones is what like I attribute a lot of my vibe check coming out to, is just bumping gangster rap in the headphones when I get up on the line and just pump myself up. I mean, really just getting in the right headspace means a lot because you've got to get those nerves out of the way. But getting into that and then getting through practice and getting a little bit of setup stuff done from Rome went very far, and it took us all the way to the end. So.
Well, that's awesome. Speaking on practice, you just mentioned a little bit. Tell us about your first day of practice, how that went. Did you run into any challenges after that?
Not really. We went out the first day of practice. We got the gear sets changed to where I thought they needed to be. We did get to do two sets of tires at IMI prior to leaving, and I changed some suspension stuff, and I got it to where it was feeling a little bit better after Justin had swapped the whole steering system. It was feeling a lot better. We went out there in practice. I had probably done 100 laps on the St. Louis course in a set of Corsa before we left.
Awesome.
And that really helps get all the jitters out of the way because you already know the layout really well. And it was actually after practice, Rome gave us the springs and gave us the settings, and we went out and did 2 sets of tires in our warm-up the day of comp, and the car just felt dialed. Like it felt exactly like my practice car, exactly what I'm used to. It self-steered and snapped and drove just perfectly. Couldn't have been any better.
That's awesome. That's exactly what you want out of your car when you're trying to shoot for the top like you did. One of the questions I actually have for you specifically is I know that you ended up having to go against one of your friends in the top 32. How did that feel?
Reminiscent, because it happens quite often, oddly enough. I've known Stookie for a long time. He came with me to my first ever event. So just being from the beginning and watching him be a good driver and me pushing to excel to get to that same level has always been a challenge, but always been, I've always had great drivers to look up to in Colorado. A lot of people wouldn't know it, but we have a lot better drivers than I think we're aware of in Colorado. But like I said, we've been across the country, pinned against each other in multiple competitions now. So it's always bittersweet. But he did a great job. The judges thought I did a little bit better. So that's how I went. But hopefully we'll meet again just later in the competition next time.
Well, it's always fun when you can compete with your friends and keep such a positive vibe. That's such a great thing to hear. The next question I have for you is...
Can I interject real quick?
Yeah, you sure can.
Side note, I don't know if you've seen the bracket for FD Seattle yet.
I haven't yet.
So we got a bye into the top 16, and our friend Dan has one battle. If he wins that battle, it's us again.
Oh, my goodness.
So it's like they have it out for us.
Battle?
You just got to pair you up with all your buddies.
Yeah, our first battle again will be against him.
Oh, geez. That's crazy. That you just can't make this up. Well, oh man, that's awesome. Well, I actually have a question for you. One more question for you, Josh. A few more. Excuse me. What was going through your mind when you were waiting on the judges to announce that final decision?
Oh man. Deep down inside, I feel like I knew I had it. But there's always that, you don't know. And either way, whether it was me or Cash, he did really well last year. He was definitely one of the best rookies out there, and he's had a year of Pro 2 on me and possibly a little bit more experience in drifting. So either way, it wasn't going to bother me if he won. But, when they said my name at the end, I was blown away. And you could... The camera shot really solidified that. You could just see my face. I was like, no way.
I can only imagine, especially when you're sitting there going against one of your good friends. You're on the top tier. You're just sitting there wondering what's going to happen next. And then when that announcement comes, it's just otherworldly.
Just blown away.
Yeah.
Blown away.
Speaking of, I got to catch a glimpse of the infamous cooler throw getting yeeted into oblivion over there. Tell me how that went.
So I always tell people to never throw water on me, and they totally set me up to come get out of my car. They were like, "Get out of the car," and I thought it was supposed to be out for some reason, so I get out, and Reagan's like blocking me, and then all of a sudden I just see Justin running, and I said, "Oh hell no!" And I just dipped. And Zach's throwing water on me, and I thought I got away from Justin, and I turn around and just out of the corner of my eye, I just see this, in slow-mo cooler flying at me. And then Chance comes over, and he's like, what the hell happened? I'm like, he threw a cooler at me. He's like, I know, I just saw it between trucks 12 feet in the air.
Oh, man.
But,
when it hit you, it had to have hurt a little bit, right?
There was a 10-pound bag of ice in there.
Oh, jeez. Oh, my goodness. Talk about some yeeting skills.
Yeah,
wow.
I'm a sniper with a cooler.
Yeah. No, he did some extracurricular Olympics style activities in high school, clearly.
Oh, man. Well, obviously, after a win like that and after getting hit with a cooler, there has to be some form of celebration. How did you celebrate that night?
Team, we went out and had dry aged steaks and whiskey.
Oh, yeah. Doing it up right. That's perfect.
Yeah, we did it right.
Awesome. Well, the biggest question I have for you is, has anything like this been done before? A rookie team like yourself coming into a pro series and taking the win just like that?
Not that I know of. We were actually trying to figure that out, but we don't. I asked a few people, and I tried to look back in time, and Pro 2's only been around for, I mean, I can't remember how long. Maybe 2015, 2014.
It's fairly new
So,
to our country for sure. I mean, they've been doing it over in Japan for a while, but as far as the series here and all that, I think you're the first person to do it.
as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think so.
Yeah, to my knowledge, I believe you're right as well. Obviously, if someone knows otherwise, they might peek up in the comments, and we can figure that out. Maybe pitch you against them.
I think it's worth noting too that our entire team is quote unquote rookie. None of us have been
Right.
to FD before. So when we showed up to St. Louis, we didn't know where we were supposed to go, how the check-in process worked, because no one on our team had been there before.
Oh, wow.
Our friend Zach has been spotting for Josh. Zach's first time ever spotting was that event. They Reagan came with us as just like a general helper, run around, busted his ass all weekend, and did a killer job. But yeah, none of us have prior experience, and it's a new car. We didn't buy a car that maybe we were new to Pro 2, but the car wasn't type deal.
Right.
So literally 100% of it was fresh.
That's
So-
crazy. And to be able to come in and overcome all of the objections that you did with the car, with your mental state, and everything like that, and still come in on top, I mean, that's a feat in and of itself.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
Josh, I also noticed that you ended up acquiring a few sponsors throughout this whole process. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
To be honest, I really just reached out to anybody who was a manufacturer of parts that we were interested in using. And, I had some help putting together an awesome proposal over last winter. Once we knew that we had, I think it was in September when we got our first Pro 2 license, August, September. We went to SEMA. Prior to SEMA, we'd put together a packet and just went after anybody that was willing to help. And, it's kind of what has to happen because, at this point, it's completely self-funded. We don't have a title sponsor. It's really just out of my pocket and out of After Hours pocket to put this whole project together. And, we had to take whatever help we could get.
Yeah, sponsorships can definitely help you make sure that you reach your goals and get where you need to go. You mind telling us, me, and the viewers as well, who some of those sponsors are?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, After Hours is like they've been the biggest help of mine since day one. But Vortex Superchargers gave us a supercharger. I mean, I can name off so much stuff. Thunderbolt gives us all of our fuel, and if you haven't heard of them, definitely go check them out because they have a really awesome story behind them. M-Spec Performance tuned the car. Big Duck Club is responsible for all the body parts that go flying off at every event. God, who else? We have so many people. So many people.
Holly, Tilton, Achilles.
Yeah.
Stage.
Feel suspension. Feel suspension has been really helpful, especially because Odie works so close with Rome.
Side note, too.
Who else, Justin?
I know he mentioned going to SEMA. So there was a couple of companies that we went through like full negotiations, signed contracts, stuff like that with at SEMA. And then when it came time to deliver in the midst of building this car, which we were already in a timeline for, they didn't exist anymore. They existed, but they didn't respond to emails, they didn't answer phone calls, stuff like that.
Oh, no.
So we had agreed to deals for certain numbers of things, certain parts that we were sitting here and we're like, well, we don't want to burn our sponsor and buy from company B if they're having some logistical problem. But eventually we hit a point with a couple of companies that we were just like, we don't know what to do. And then
to move forward.
I think in the end it worked out well because some companies that I feel are better companies stepped in and filled those gaps later on. So I think it was a blessing in disguise, but it was super stressful at the time.
I can definitely understand the stress. Who did this beautiful wrap on the car, by the way?
That was Reagan, the Reaganstein. He designed and wrapped the whole thing. He actually did the design on all the sponsor stickers as well. So
wow,
big shout out to Reagan. He actually had quite a bit to do with the entire project. So
that's awesome. Well, best of luck to you and the team. All of us here at SSR Video, as well as Drift Colorado, are behind you guys, and let's see how you do for round 2.
I think we're going to do really well.
I think you will too.
Well, that's it? That's it, right?
That's it.
All right. Well, thank you, Josh, for joining us remotely via Zoom and joining us here for this awesome first driver interview for Drift Colorado. And just thank you so much, and congratulations on the big win. That's awesome.
If you haven't checked out
man.
Josh's YouTube channel, it's Josh Loves Drifting on YouTube. Also, if you're looking to get into getting any work done, I believe Justin here with After Hours Autosport is more than willing to get you covered in the Denver area. So hit him up. You can look him up on Facebook, Instagram, pretty much anywhere you need to. Don't forget to like, subscribe on Drift Colorado as well as SSR Video. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, pretty much anywhere. We'll see you on the streets.